Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our special council meeting for March the 8th. I'll call the meeting to order, and I'll note that we are all in attendance with the exception of Councillor Kelly. You may be seated. I'm going to ask if anyone has any disclosures of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Seeing none, we're going to skip a lot of business because today is a special council meeting, and we'll move to item number 6, which is deputations. And today's special council meeting is called to consider a request from the Black Bear Ridge GP Incorporated. And I'll ask Alex Sharp to come forward and to introduce himself and his group and tell us who will be starting off with making their presentation, please. If I can just get you to push the button, the little red light will come on. There you go.
There you go. Hello, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Thank you very much. My name is Alex Sharp. I'm the President and Managing Director of Black Bear Ridge GP. Just here to introduce our application for a significant development and one that we believe is in the best interest of Belleville's present and future. It's important to note that the application picks up on decades of work that were done by the previous ownership, Mr. Brian McGee. Obviously his time in Belleville goes back many, many years. This property is an assembly of a number of different properties that he put together over the course of many decades. He obviously spent significant time, energy, and investment opening the golf course and building it into the world-class facility that everybody knows. And this proposal has been shaped largely in keeping with a lot of his earlier vision for the site, including road networks and infrastructure that was already put in place prior to our time. We've assembled a group of expert planners and consultants, and the Biglieri group, Mike Pettigrew here, is going to run through the summary of the presentation and of course take any questions after the fact. So again, I'm very grateful for everybody and the time and energy put forward by city staff with the leadership of the mayor and his colleagues. And I'm going to turn it over to Mike now to present the proposal. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Pettigrew. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here. It's my first in-person council meeting in 2 years. So very exciting for that. And I traveled all the way from sunny Hamilton to be here. Okay. So stayed at one of your fine establishments. So it's been a wonderful time here. As Mr. Sharp already alluded to, I'm one of the planners, one of the consultants that has been retained. There's been a number that have been retained so far, and this is just the first step, and there will be several more that will be retained as we move through the planning process. So the bulk of the presentation that I'll go through here is from a planning perspective, and then questions at the end. I'll do my best certainly to field any of the questions you may have on some of the other consultants' reports, and if there's anything else that Mr. Sharp might be able to touch on, he can certainly come back up as well. So the site, I don't think I need to spend a lot of time on this. You know where it is. It's in your community here, and it's an existing golf course. Yeah.
So I would just suggest, you know, we may be familiar with it, but there are people watching that this will be new to. So you have all the time you need. This is a significant project, so we're not going to rush you. Just take the time, and there will be people that are watching now live, and they will also tune on to the archived version of it in the future.
Perfect. Okay. So the property, and does this have a, it does not have a, okay, so you can see my cursor, so that's good. So the property here outlined in red is a total of around 368 hectares, which is about 911 acres. And it is comprised of several parcels, as Mr. Sharp has already alluded to, partial land assembly from the previous owners, and including himself. The main address is at 501 Harmony Road in Correspondence. It's located in between 62 and 37 on Harmony Road, and there is an access as well from Holman. If you come straight up at the very edge, Holman ends at the top here, and there's an opportunity for access into the property on that side as well. The property itself right now consists mainly of the existing golf course and facilities, but there's also varied landscapes. There are some existing woodlots, there's some wetlands, and there are agricultural fields in some of the parcels as well as state residential and rural residential lots that are towards Harmony Road. The surrounding, obviously to the north, is Moira River, and surrounding it is additional agricultural and wood lots to the west, the Trillium Woods Golf Course to the east, and to the south, more rural and estate residential, as well as the Gary Masterson Community Center and the Harmony School, public school. So these are all the parcels that contain, comprise the entire site, and they're under the ownership for Black Bear Ridge GP. The total, as I mentioned there, 368.7 hectares, 911 acres. This is the current zoning framework for the property. And as you can see, the outline in red are the total land holdings. And there are a variety of different zones that overlap on the parcels. Community facilities, rural residential, prime agricultural, estate residential, as well as hazard and environmentally sensitive areas. And so the property, again, because it was an amalgamation, these, some of them run over top of various parcels, some of them overlap. And the idea behind this ministerial zoning order is to consolidate the zoning and the uses on the areas that are non-environmental. So the MZO itself does not actually cover or contain the environmental zoning for the parcels that are already identified and designated in the zoning bylaw. What we're looking to do here is consolidate the community facilities, the rural residential, prime agricultural, and those types of uses into what will eventually become the Black Bear Ridge Village Zone, or BBRV. And so the area in yellow, as you can see, there's a patchwork of properties that are either not included. For instance, this rectangular parcel, this is not included in the land holding, so it's obviously not included as well in this MZO. But these other lines represent the existing zoning lines for the environmental. They are not part of the MZO, so the MZO itself focuses on the area only in yellow. And as mentioned, it's intended to consolidate the various uses into one cohesive use that has a lot of the same permissions that were there before, some additional permissions that I'll get into as well. But the key thing is that our work with your staff, which thank you to your planning staff, there was significant work on trying to ensure that this MZO, the zoning order portion in particular, was done right. We have placed caps on the density for the residential uses, as well as on certain uses, the commercial recreational uses like the clubhouses. We've placed caps on the GFA, the gross floor area, for those. So the lands will still permit the same wide variety of uses, and this is in order to not just create a golf course. It's a full 4-season resort with supporting residential, and the additional uses that we're applying for in this zone are to create a complete community, which is part of the province's, but also your own framework for building new communities in a way that's sustainable and provides enough services, commercial and recreational parks and so on, for the future residents. The zone as well is currently based on the existing Thurlow bylaw. So it's our understanding as well that the new city bylaw, there are transition policies there. It's more of a technicality, and perhaps your staff will be able to highlight that those finer details a little better. But there are transition policies in order to ensure that when the new bylaw comes into force, that this won't just continue to carry on the old Thurlow bylaw. It will be updated with your modern standards as well. In addition to the planning framework, the current official plan designation is recreational commercial, and there's parts of it that are also in the rural residential area. The official plan, your new official plan, is still not approved yet at the ministry. So there was an opportunity here from staff's perspective to be able to ensure that your official plan also meets this request for the zoning bylaw. And so there is an amendment or an attachment, sorry, to the report that goes over some possible changes for your official plan, which essentially just creates a special policy area for what's called a fully serviced resort area. And it will essentially follow the outline of the land holdings. And that way, these lands can also be subject to other policies from your official plan as well. As part of the design vision for the site, we have a team of urban designers and planners at our firm. And part of what Black Bear Ridge and Mr. Sharp came to us for was for the planning side, for the MZO, how do we look at the policy, but also more importantly, how do we help realize the overall vision for the property. So we started off with the existing vision that was there that Black Bear Ridge now is looking to enhance and update into, the 20 years later from when that initially was started. They want to bring that into sort of the modern times. And so we looked at 4 sort of distinct areas about sustainability, climate resilience, enhancing the natural features, about the economics in terms of tourism, job creation and opportunities, as well as age-friendly design. We also looked at it from a high level on the transportation and mobility side to look at different ways to introduce active transportation on the property, and including things like mobile scooters, dedicated bike lanes. There's already an existing trail system that this can connect into, and that can be further enhanced as well. And then, of course, looking at this at all seasons, not just a golf course. It's available only when it's not snowing out. We are looking at this as a full 4 seasons resort and community that, again, offers a variety of built form and a live, work, play sort of overarching mentality where you have places for people to work, not just on the resort, and thus we've introduced some other commercial opportunities like offices and service, and as well as obviously to play. There's a significant amount of recreational and natural areas as well. Again, so I'll go through some of the overarching principles now. So pedestrian-friendly community. As Mr. Sharp already sort of alluded, there was a loose sort of road network that was already mapped out from the previous ownership. We've largely tried to keep in line with those current roads for minimal site disturbance. But what they do is they create a secondary and a primary. So in the red is the primary, yellow is secondary. Road network that goes through the site to be able to connect. It's a very large site, almost 1,000 acres. And so there are distinct nodes and connections between those. But we don't want this to just be for roads and for vehicles. There are, again, an existing trail network, and as part of this overall development, a connection of the various open spaces and parks that will become part of the overall community, as well as, again, integrating it with the golf course. That's significant, and that is staying where it is in place. And so part of the main design principles is to look at inclusive design, but also active transportation and innovative mobility options. The other idea that was looked at is that this will be affordable, but not sacrificing the luxury side of this. So this is just some examples and ideas of the architecture. As part of future stages, there will be a master architectural design so that this entire property reads together from an architectural standpoint. And so the visual language of the built form and materials would respond to the environment and respond to the overall use of the property. And so providing a variety of housing forms, not just single-family homes, but townhouses, live-work options, duplexes, triplexes, even low-rise apartments up to about 4 stories. provides different opportunities for more people to come enjoy the site and have the site be accessible at all affordability levels, and also for families, not just individuals coming here and getting a affordability. You just have a one-bedroom or a bachelor apartment. We want to look at this from the perspective of creating enough density that could support actual affordable housing options and a variety for people in the community of all ages as well, and sort of all abilities, going back to the age-friendly and the inclusive design. And then, of course, I mean, there's the golf course itself. The goal here is to maintain the existing golf course, but enhance the destination side, creating a destination spa and wellness center located in and around a future clubhouse closer to the south side of the site, as well as other recreational and entertainment uses in that immediate area. I'll get to the concept plan where this comes, and I'll highlight these. But this also includes accommodations, a variety of different accommodations, hotels, villas, and small sort of cottage-like buildings throughout the, not just in the golf area, but throughout the site. And that will allow, again, for all seasons tourism, but it will also allow for people to come and use and utilize the natural area. Again, I've touched on this several times now. This was looking to be an all-season destination. When you have the significant amount of the property that's in the environmental state that will be maintained, there will be access for trails and hiking, snowmobiling, snowshoeing, and so on. And then there's also activities along Moira River. There is an existing building there that is looking to be renovated and have sort of a second clubhouse or a destination in the north. And there would be an outdoor event space nearby as well that can host concerts, art shows, and that sort of thing outdoors. And it will help, again, connect the residents that are there and visitors to come through the site and go all the way north into the riverside and into the natural areas around it. And the natural areas, of course, there is significant, at least 30% of the site that is already designated and covered as environmental will remain in that state. And this is a destination that is not looking to remove it. It's actually looking to use the environmental to enhance it and to enrich it. And so providing the opportunities for connections to it through trails and the active transportation network, and to be able to protect it where it's possible, and enhance it through access and still have protections. And that would lead to the master plan. And this is a conceptual master plan at this time. There are still several studies that need to be undertaken in order to take those design principles that I've gone through to fruition. So the initial work that's been done, we've had Palmer Environmental. They are an environmental consulting firm. They have done an initial natural heritage review to look at portions of the property and the different constraints that are there. That is not a full environmental impact study. That will come at the next stage, and that can certainly identify within the areas that are in the Black Bear Ridge or the BBRV zone, additional areas for protections if that's the case. But right now, the property, as you can, it might be a bit difficult to see on this, but there are areas that have been dashed in as areas for future study as well, and it won't certainly be limited to that. It'll be a full environmental impact study on the entire property. And there's also been a high-level servicing brief done by Jewel Engineering and an economic impact report that's been done by Urban Metrics. But to inform this plan, we went back to what the current zoning and the current official plan designations are on the property. we went back to what the principles were that Mr. Sharp and his group wanted to see on the site. And when we came up with those design principles, this is how it could potentially be realized. And so, in part, how this breaks down is the areas that are in yellow are the low-density residential, and that would include semis and singles, single-detached homes. The areas in orange are the medium density, so that would be townhouses and apartments, probably duplexes, triplexes, that sort of thing. And then there are two resort areas. There's the golf course resort down the south side and the riverside on the north. There is an event space. That area was chosen specifically because there is a large open clearing there right now, which is perfect for this. And then resort accommodations in purple to be able to support those clubhouse activities. And as you can see from the overall on the property, about 30%, about almost a third of the entire property is environmental, and it will be left in that environmental state. I apologize here, I think I hit. And so the other remaining portions of the site, another 1/3 of that property is in the existing clubhouse, or sorry, existing golf course, sorry, in this light green. So that really leaves a third of this site that's developable for the commercial and residential uses, and including other parks and open space that will be part of those communities as well. And so this is just, again, as I said, a conceptual idea of how this property could break down based on the current road network that was cut through by the previous owners, and it's following along those lines. This is certainly not the end, and there will be more detailed studies that will help further refine these areas. When we created the master plan, it also, based on these areas and availability, is what generated the amount of potential units. So in your official plan, your low density area goes up to 25 units per hectare, or up to 60 units per hectare for medium density. So what this represents is the cap. This is the very, very top end. This is certainly not necessarily where it would go. This is the initial permissions that we're looking at. It's still subject to servicing and further refinement. But that's where that number comes from, that 3,050 units is based off of the absolute max of, again, like as they say, about 30%, just over 30% of the area for low density and medium density. This is just close up on the south side, so you get a little bit of a better view. In that sort of tealy color will be the future golf course and other golf clubhouse, sorry. That will include the spa and other buildings, restaurants, and sort of amenities for that. And the purple area, some of these are existing villas, and there will be future villas and a hotel in that area as well. And then it's surrounded by medium density residential. And there is one pocket that's down here on Harmony Road where we could put in a small cul-de-sac off of Harmony Road for some residential units on that side. In that medium density area that's specifically near the clubhouse, this would be an excellent opportunity for the seniors housing component. And within the medium density area is also where the majority of these commercial uses that we have contemplated could potentially go. And again, through the design of and the change in densities and the types of built forms, this provides an opportunity for affordable housing, not just specifically in this pocket, but throughout the site. And so it's not going to be concentrated, but there will certainly be opportunity for more affordable housing units within townhouses and apartments in this area. There's also, we've excluded it out of the MZO as well as the existing estate residential subdivision that's on Harmony Road near 37. So it's excluded from all of these numbers. We've put it in here as existing just because it's part of the overall sort of holdings, but it's not being included as any of the density because it's sort of already existing in its permissions. And then for the north, again, most of this is environmental and the golf course, but then there are two sort of enclaves, one on the east side and one on the west side. The west side is where there'd be more activity for the Riverside Clubhouse and that outdoor event space. And then the east side would be a bit more of a residential only sort of enclave, nestled in with the golf course. So as I alluded to earlier, the initial review by Palmer was a natural heritage review. And so what it does is it's an initial site investigation out on the property, but it was just done. So it was done in the wintertime. There is still a need for a 4 seasons review with the terms of reference through discussions with Quinte, as well as the Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte, and of course your staff as well. And so that EIS work would begin this spring if the MZO is successful, and it would continue on throughout the next stage of the process in order to properly evaluate all of the environmental constraints on the site. And as I talked about before, the MZO itself, the Ministry Zoning Order, does not include any of those existing designated environmental areas. And so those are still governed by the existing policies that are in place. And those will be looked at and reviewed as well comprehensively in the next stage through a draft plan submissions or a master plan with your staff and with Quinte. So that taking it out of the MZO allows that jurisdiction to stay here at the local level rather than at the provincial level, which I think is important as well. And then the zone itself for the BBRV, it stays out of those environmental areas, but it still leaves room in that zoning for additions to the NHS, the Natural Heritage System, through that EIS work. So it certainly doesn't mean that that is now the permanent limit of development. That is still part of the future study. There was also the high-level servicing brief that was done by Jewel Engineering. That looks at this property put into the special policy area as a fully serviced resort. So it actually will require full services to be brought to the site in order to develop, but it is outside of the urban area and it's counted separately. So this is in addition to the allocation that's already there. Same with your growth. There you have urban density allocation growth. This would be separate from that pool, let's say, or that allocation for growth. And the servicing costs, as you saw in your staff report, there will be a cost share report or agreement that will come forward. And that's something that at the end of the day, the servicing costs are designed to be what's called net neutral, revenue neutral, and have the growth pay for that growth. And then lastly, I want to touch on this. I think it's a very important part, is the economic impacts. So Urban Metrics is a firm that I think they've actually done some other work here in Belleville. And they looked at what was being fully proposed for the full ultimate build out of the site, for the 3,050 units, and looking at all of the commercial activity built out to its full, including the golf course and any of the ancillary commercial, service commercial, that sort of thing that would be there. And so what this does is it results in, well, you can see the number here, 1.5 billion. And that 1.5 billion is an investment on the construction side. This is the construction, not only the residential, but also all of those commercial buildings. It's also a huge generator for revenues for the city. 45.6 million in DCs based on, again, full build out. And this is all based on 2022 dollars. And an estimated annual income from the taxes, residential and commercial and service and resort of 17.6 million annually. It's also a huge job creator. A lot of those jobs you saw in the report, over 12,000, are related to ongoing year-by-year construction jobs. Those are full-time jobs to, and again, achieve that 1.5 billion in construction. But then there are also jobs full-time and part-time within the resort, but by making this a complete community and building out commercial, there's opportunity for offices, retail, restaurants that will create other community-related and local, Belleville local part-time and full-time jobs. And then, of course, as part of the other economic benefit, all this activity, you're bringing in tourism. There's a broader sort of community, social, and tourism-related benefits, and also with these components for the seniors housing and affordable housing and all the recreational opportunities that are there. So it is overall a pretty significant, and it is a very large development at its full build-out. But as you can see on those numbers, it provides a lot of benefits here for the community. I'll finish here just with the next steps. If this MZO is endorsed here at council, the next step is obviously for it to go to the ministry for approval. And if that is the case, then the zoning order is then put in place. And then your staff will work with the ministry on the official plan side to move that as well. But this is only the beginning phase. The next phase here is to go through and do that full suite of studies, including these ones, certainly not limited to this, but a full environmental impact study, a full functional servicing and stormwater management report, and looking at the feasibility and costing of all the servicing in full, transportation master plan, urban design and master architectural plans, and any number of other studies that either Quinty or your staff here at Belleville require for what will eventually become a draft plan of subdivision applications, and then future site plan applications for all these individual pockets like the clubhouse and the spa, the river clubhouse, and so on. And of course, throughout all of this, there will be additional public and stakeholder engagement. We've already begun some of that outreach, and we want to continue that as soon as we can through these next phase, and when we get more information in more detail through our analysis. And with that, I will open it up to questions, and thank you for indulging me. It was quite a bit, but as you said, Mr. Mayor, I wanted to make sure that I went through it in full. So,
thank you very much, Mr. Pettigrew. And just for everybody's information, following the deputation by the BBRGP, we will have some other individuals that will be making presentations, deputations to council. And then we have some correspondence. Some of it is on your desk now that we will officially receive to be part of the record. And right now we're just going to deal with the presentation that is being made there. So, Mr. Pettigrew, thank you very much for that very comprehensive presentation. And I did receive all of the attachments, and I've looked through them, and they are comprehensive. Just a couple of quick questions. And so, when we were talking about the amount of developable land or area on the site, when I was counting the different areas, including the golf course, I got to about 220.76 hectares of green space or environmentally protected space. That's about 60%. When you were doing the presentation, you were saying it's about 66%. Did I incorrectly read it, or do you think I'm missing one of the spots?
No, it's the golf course and the other parks and open space together. They're already 110, right? So 110 of the hectares out of the 368.
Yeah.
And then you add the environmental at another 110. That's where your number.
Okay.
So you are correct.
Right. So I guess for me, that's substantial. That 60% of the area will not be developed. It's going to be kept to be green space and naturalized. If I can just switch gears slightly, on the commercial housing, so the hotel and the villas, do I understand correctly from your presentation that is it a cap of 250 occupants for all of those, or is there some flexibility in that moving up or at all?
Yeah, it's not necessarily on the occupants. We looked at potential occupants, but it's based on a gross floor area. And so the gross floor area, I'm just trying to pull up the exact number here. So for the motel and hotel any of the resort accommodations is 10,200 square meters, which is about just over 100,000 square feet. And so that will come in multiple different forms. I'm not sure if Alex, if there was an exact number that you were thinking of on that, but there's flexibility certainly in the number. We're looking at a cap from a GFA perspective.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. That answers my question. One of the comments you made was to explain to us, because it's always difficult dealing with our existing developers when we talk about the urban boundary and the urban growth areas. And oftentimes, to make changes in the official plan, we have to take areas out if we want to add another area in. So can you just maybe speak a little bit more about how this is, because this is a settlement area, that we do not have to remove any residential land to make up for the fact that this will be included, as well when we count this towards our long-term 25-year growth plans, which we have concerns about being too low, but when we also don't have to count towards that. So none of our local property owners, developers are going to be negatively impacted on this. This is a one-off special consideration as a settlement area. But can you just maybe explain that a little bit more for me and for others?
Yeah, certainly, and you're exactly right. The opportunity you have right now, because your official plan has not been finalized, is the ability to create this as a separate sub-planning area. And the designation is in excess of what you currently have in your official plan. So there has not been any rejigging of those lines. And so this would be development that would be above and beyond what has already been contemplated.
Right, thank you. And that, just I guess, in your experience working with municipalities, that's not an opportunity that comes around very often, where you can actually add to your developable area, almost, as a bonus for what's happening.
Exactly, and a lot of our work is within the Ontario Growth Plan. You're outside of that, so you have some unique opportunities that way. You have a lot more control over your growth, and I think the real unique opportunity here that's present is the fact that you still have your official plan that's not yet finalized, and so yeah, I agree with you completely.
Okay. Thank you. And then my last question, and I'll open up to my colleagues for questions too as well. The urban metrics economic impact analysis, and I went through the presentations, and they are substantial. I wonder if you can maybe just speak a little bit for people who are unfamiliar with urban metrics and the methodology that they use to make these predictions. I think for some people they'll think that the numbers may be exaggerated, that they may be just pulled out of the air to try to substantiate or justify a particular outcome. I wonder if you can just speak to your group's relationship with them and what the professional standards are, so that we know that the information we've received is accurate and comes because of a rule or a way of determining these numbers.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's a great question. Urban metrics themselves, they're sort of a full-service consulting firm that deal with economic impact reports, land needs assessments, feasibility studies. They are day in and day out in the world of construction and economics and taxes and financing. So there certainly are qualified professionals that deal with this. I mean, like I say, they've already done work here in Belleville. I believe it was on the Smart Center, or it may have been on the Walmart that was here. And they are they're quite involved throughout the GTA and beyond in Ontario. The methodology, again, it certainly depends on what that number is they're looking at. But they do everything based on accepted industry standards. They don't make these numbers up. They're using it, if it's construction, they're basing it off of current construction costs that are out there in the industry. And as people that are in the industry know, that those numbers are, there's always some wiggle room in terms of how high end or how low end you're going with construction. But based on the concept that we've provided and the types of units that we're envisioning, that's how they've determined what the cost factors would be to say get to that 1.5 billion. That's based on average unit size, and then a construction cost based on the type of units, and that's where they get to that number. When it comes to jobs, again, same thing. They look at what the potential build-out time frame is for that. Again, based on industry standards for the amount of employees that are required in the construction industry to do that. When it came to things like the employment at the golf course and recreation, again, they're using best practices based on other golf courses, input from our client and what their intentions are as well. And that's a little bit how the difference of those two numbers, they're arrived a little bit differently. And then the tax revenues DCs, that's again based purely on what is being proposed in 2022 dollars based on the tax regime that's here. So those numbers are fairly black and white, if you will. They're pretty direct, and that's how they came up with those. But it's certainly not pulled out of nowhere. It's either based on this concept plan or set industry standards for evaluating these types of projects.
Right, thank you. And some professionally accredited consultants, so
Absolutely,
thank you.
yes.
Good. Colleagues, anyone else have questions or comments for Mr. Pettigrew? Councillor Alsop.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
If you want, Councillor, you can sit down. I think we'll just relax the rules for this as a special meeting. But
Wonderful, well, thank you. So through you to Mr. Pettigrew, this is certainly a very exciting and ambitious development, one of the largest to have ever been considered in Belleville. I think a lot of people at home will be surprised about the amount of conversation surrounding affordable housing. And so I was wondering, what does that term affordable housing mean to you? And do you have a sense of what the price scale will be on the units? Because obviously if we're talking affordable at one end, but this is a high-end golf resort, at the other end, what are we looking at in terms of the spread there?
Great question. So to the councillor through the chair, or through the mayor, the affordability range is going to, well, so I'll start with price point. Price point, we're still a ways out, so price point is varied. This will also be a build out over many years, 20 plus years for sure. I mean, it's 3,000 units, the absorption rate as it is. It's going to take a long time. So those prices will certainly change over time. It also varies greatly on what the actual mix ends up being, singles versus townhouses versus apartments, as those things change.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. So in terms of the price point, again, it's going to also be based on the types of units that ultimately come. So affordability can be a couple of things. There can be targeted affordability. These are affordable units. They under the letter of the law or based on Belleville's standards. There's also more affordable units. So units that at the market level are not, again, as we talked about, by having the variety, that doesn't mean that if you get a single, it's now not affordable. There's going to be a range within each of these types of uses that will have an affordability range. So there will be singles that will be more affordable than some other ones. And one of the other aspects that, again, Black Bear Ridge was asking for on this site is to ensure that this is not inaccessible luxury. We want to have the quality build, but by having the density and the range that we do, you can afford to provide accessible from a market and a financial side, different types of units without having to sacrifice the quality and being part of an overall resort community. Individuals here don't need to be part of a highbrow country club, to be here. This will be fully accessible for people to enter and live here. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Alsop. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I've got two questions. When you talk about, and I need to understand it as well as probably a few other, is the growth pays for growth. So you've got sewer and water we have to run out there. And now is the developers paying the upfront cost, and then the people that are, how is the restructuring of the financing of because to take sewer and water out there is going to be considerable. And of course, we've been asked that for a number of years. So can you explain how that fee would be paid and structured?
It's a great question. To the councillor, through the mayor, I know that your staff with their legal consultants are working on a cost sharing agreement. We also don't have a final design or numbers for how that will actually come. What's going to be the route that will come? That's going to be part of this next step. The servicing feasibility sort of brief that was provided was meant to show conceptually at a high level that this is possible, but that further work is still required. So when you have development, there are a number of different ways to either it's an upfront cost. Sometimes it isn't always an upfront cost, right? There's going to be a lot to get there. Some of it is cost sharing, in which case there will be an agreement that will be put in place for that. But I don't want to get ahead of myself because I don't really know at this point what that will be. But it is something that certainly your staff and legal counsel are going to work on as we move through the next stages.
Okay, thank you, because that's a fairly large investment for the city or the investors. If the city has to upfront it totally, then that's a concern for our tax base and so on and so forth. So thank you very much for
Thompson,
that.
if I can just tag on, I think it's important for us to be really clear on and have it. I don't think you fully answered the question, Mr. Pettigrew. This proposal goes ahead because the developers are paying for the expansion of water and sanitary. So the cost to extend water and sanitary will be borne by the property owners. It will not be borne by the city. Yes. In addition, the other costs, and we'll discuss this later on in in Director Ashton's report, all of the soft costs that the city would have, our staff to review, all those things, they are all fully borne, and that's the third resolution, which is the cost sharing agreement.
Yeah, thank you. That's all I really was trying to get him to explain, so that the taxpayers were not going to be on the on that end of it. So that was important for the taxpayers to hear that. So my second question is just a general, what part do you see as the first stage of your development? That's for the public to know.
So based on the first phase, obviously because of the size of the site, this will start to work from the south and work its way to the north. Not to say that the river clubhouse at the top would certainly be the last possible thing that would happen, but as the servicing comes into the site, the south becomes unlocked first. And so from an overall staging and development standpoint, it would start in and around the residential components just off of Harmony Road and some of the upgrades to the resort, the golf resort, and the accommodations there. And then working its way to the north, again, having the residential lead some of the investment. That's where it helps pay for some of the more commercial recreational expansion.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, I have Councillor McCaw, and then Councillor Feeney, then Councillor Millette.
Thank you, through you. Thank you, Mr. Pettigrew. It's quite an interesting proposal. I want to come back to the affordable piece that you had mentioned throughout your presentation. And I think that I had some of the same questions that Councillor Alsep had. When you had mentioned affordable housing, are you referring to affordable rentals, affordable home ownership? That's something that I know a lot of my constituents will want to know. That's my first question. And then the second part to that was when you had mentioned the seniors housing, is that affordable seniors housing rentals or affordable seniors housing for purchase?
So certainly great question, Councillor. So to you through the mayor, some of the details of that programming, it is conceptual at this stage, and I know I sort of hate to say it that way, but it is conceptual. The idea here is that there will be the potential for a mix of both of the rental and purchasing, and that the seniors housing or the affordable housing component will either be tied to a specific program, or it could be tied, again, market-based. So the main goal at this stage, at this high-level stage, is to provide the opportunity. And by having the density and the different ranges that we do, it gives our client the opportunity to do that. If we were stuck only just doing a certain type of single-family homes, our options are very limited. And so by having that variety, the options are, I don't want to say unlimited, but they certainly, in the context here with having a range of 4-story apartment buildings, all the way to single-family homes, 2,000 square foot single-family homes, and a range in between that. It allows for that opportunity. So I don't have a definitive number. I don't, something like that. That kind of programming in the end tenure, the end user, is still undetermined. But like I say, the opportunity is there.
So thank you. So the intent then I get from what you've said is the intent is to be a mix of affordable rentals and affordable properties that someone can purchase, that buyers can purchase.
Yeah. So to the councillor through the mayor, the intention would be a suite of rental and ownership and all affordable levels. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you.
And just, there'll be more information for that because there'll have to be draft plans of subdivision. There'll have to be, a number of steps leading up to building permits that are going to be issued. And so we'll have an opportunity to have input and consultation and to clarify that.
It'll be not the last time you'll see me.
That's right. Thank you very much, Councillor McCaw. Councillor Feeney.
Thank you. Through yourself to Mr. Pettigrew. I'd like to follow up on those two comments because as a member of the Accessibility Committee and the Planning Committee, I'm very interested in your point about this being an inclusive development and a very important one. And I'm just wondering, we're trying to make sure that people with disabilities and young families and fixed incomes will be part of this mix. Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping that we will have the opportunity to have more discussions on that vein because it's very important to our community. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor? Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Millette, and then Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Your Worship. Some of my questions have been asked already on affordability, and thank you, Councillor McCaw, for asking about the seniors component. I'm still trying to puzzle that one out, and I get that it's conceptual, and I think by the time actually we see an awful lot of that component built out, only Councillor Alsop will be in place to be perhaps taking part in that sort of housing. But so that's been answered. I would like to ask, is there currently any active prime agricultural activities underway on any of the lands that we're talking about here?
Through the mayor to you, I don't believe, Alex, is there anything being farmed on those properties currently that you were aware of?
A section of 449 Harmony has been farmed with a loose agreement. It's not contractual with a neighboring property owner, and that was according to the seller of that property, who's moved to Calgary. With the exception of that, there's no farming or prime agriculture activity at all.
Yeah, and that was my concern, that we're not eliminating a significant swath of prime ag land here. Okay, that's good. And just in a nutshell, can you just give me the urgency? It's explained in our report that the urgency of seeking an MZO. I understand that there may be a new government in place in June, and MZOs may go the way of the Great Plains buffalo. But if you could, in a nutshell, explain to me why the urgency right now is seeking an MZO.
I think the MZOs, sorry to the councillor through the chair, I think the MZO as a tool to achieve, in this particular instance, while your official plan is also open, it allows for those two to run in tandem because it's kind of both sitting at a provincial level. And so by going through that process to amalgamate the various zoning pieces that you saw there into one, this is I think, and as your mayor alluded to earlier, it's sort of a unique opportunity right now to be able to do this in a streamlined process, knowing full well that there is still a public process. You still have the draft plans, we still have future site plans, and there is still a overall visioning exercise still to go. This is by no means we're building tomorrow. There's still a long way to go, but the sort of window that we're in, as you alluded to, with potentially changes in governments, planning policies, those regimes always change. But I think the key thing is the fact that you can do both of these things in tandem, so.
Thank you very much, Councillor Millette. Councillor Carr.
Okay, yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pettigrew. And that was my initial question. We're, as a councillor, one of the two councillors that represent that area, I also chair a planning advisory committee, so we've been through the official plan process. And we're getting emails even now as we speak, and you probably see me on my phone because residents are watching this. They just learned about this plan yesterday in the media and after it was released by the city, so they get concerned. And so then when you hear an MZO, the first thing they think is they're trying to sneak something through. City council's trying to pass something without public consultation, and there becomes an angst. And particularly in this area, as you're familiar with it now, as you've studied it, it's rural. And looking at the plans, I'm hearing from residents on Harmony Road concerning about traffic and the buildup that they didn't anticipate just several months ago when we passed the official plan at the council level. Folks on Holman Road with your build-out plan of actually connecting that road, which now is a dead end, into your development, how that will impact. We have residents on private well and septic, of course, who get concerned when digging starts to occur and the aquifers get disturbed and that type of thing. So I appreciate the explanation for the MZO. Could you describe what the public consultation framework would look like outside of the fact that obviously draft plans, subdivision applications come to council for approval, so they're part of the public process? But what does your group intend to provide in terms of robust public consultation along the way?
That's a great question, Councillor, and to you through the Mayor. As part of our planning rationale brief that went with this, we did talk about establishing a public consultation strategy to move forward. There is certainly a lot of opportunity. The studies that are going to be required are going to happen over the next year. As things open up, and here we are, there is going to be a lot more opportunity for this type of engagement as well, where that was certainly lacking in some areas and jurisdictions. And so it's also, and I don't want to speak necessarily for my client because this is his investment. I'm neutral as the planner, but this is his major investment, as you've heard. He wants to make sure it's a success, and having the neighbors not be involved or have issues certainly will work against that success. So this full strategy is to come. Once we're now through this process and we have an understanding where our new sort of framework is, we can begin that consultation and that strategy also as we gain more information. Now we're going to be able to get out to site, do our full season study, and I think that alone will allow for this opportunity from there. We joined this site with our client very recently. I know that Mr. Sharp has had this for a little while now, and he's been on the ground, and he's been at the site quite often, and he's sort of been then truthing, and as he always mentions, he knows every square inch of this property now. And so as we move forward and do the rest of that analysis, we'll start to be able to share that and get more feedback from the community. So strategy to come, but certainly that can begin as soon as possible. And our hope is that it won't just start there, it'll continue as we get right all the way through the draft plan process.
Okay, and that's good, and for the benefit of obviously your firm and also for the owner to hear, though, a lot of the residents have been there a long time, so there's the history and there's I guess an expectation of a certain way of life there. And not that they object to change, but it's better to be informed along the way than be surprised. And like I said, some of the tone with some of the correspondence is panic in terms of, and realistically, for somebody that's on a private well, and suddenly if there's major development, you're talking about potable water, so based on the value of your home, the quality of your water. So these are daily living concerns that these folks contemplate and get worried about. And if they don't have information and they think that something big like this is coming, their first concern is how is this going to impact just the basic living requirements, what I thought was going to be a rural community. And I'm not trying to deflate the excitement here today. I think this is an excellent project for sure, but I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't express the concerns that I'm hearing, particularly that have unfolded in the last 12 hours. So I appreciate that and look forward to seeing that consultation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Card. Councillor Sandison.
Thank you, through the chair. Thanks, Michael. That's an excellent presentation, and for me, this is a game changer, and for Belleville, this is a real game changer. Some of the questions have already been asked and answered, so I won't touch on those, but certainly Councillor Carr's comment about public consultation, really, really important. And, looking forward to seeing that roll out in whatever form it takes. And I too have been receiving the same concerned emails. But I was able to put some of them to rest in the fact that, we are going to be running municipal services out there as part of the project. So that really took some of the concerns off the table. The other thing is, some of the residents have reminded me that this thing's been around for 20 years. And so for them, it isn't really a surprise as much as it's a surprise that it's actually going to happen. So well done, and look forward to the next steps, and certainly we'll be supporting you guys to whatever extent we can. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Councillor. I was thinking about that just as Councillor Carr finished. Now, it also has, as Mr. Sharp alluded to, something like this has been in the works for 20 years, right? Where initially that began. So, but not to say that it isn't a surprise to see it now all of a sudden here. So we're very excited as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Pettigrew. I wonder if I can call Mr. Sharp back to the podium. Just to finish up, we're going to hear from some other folks, as I said, and then we'll deal with the resolution. I don't know if you remember, Mr. Sharp, but tomorrow will be the 1-year anniversary of the first time we met.
2 years.
2021.
2020, Mr.
2020, 2 years. COVID has shrunk some things.
COVID compresses things.
That original conversation that we had,
Yeah.
the issue of servicing
Yeah.
and the cost of servicing was the first item that we discussed. And you went back to your group. You followed our advice in terms of getting to find out if it was feasible to get a servicing study. Jewel Engineering did that. That information, you had a public information session, or not a public information session. You had an information session for members of council, for our provincial representatives, for candidates, and election city staff in the summertime. And on October 25th, you received the feasibility study showing it was in fact possible. And you and your group have said that you're willing to undertake this. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but in terms of the question about what's the urgency of using an MZO, when we're talking about a $1.56 billion with a B investment over time, I'm not pre-approved for that. The arrangements that you would have to be making in terms of getting your financing lined up so that you can start work commencing with servicing, so that would support all of those activities, are complex, and you will need the certainty that this project it can be done. And that is what the MZO was designed to do, and that is why you've requested us to do that at the same time with the official plan amendment. So I'm not sure if there's anything else you want to say before we move on, but I wanted to give you this opportunity.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, and I think that everything that has been discussed and raised by members of council is valid and important, and these are strong considerations. It's a big application. I think it's important to keep in mind what Mike said. There's a lot of future conversations, correspondence, planning, design work to be unearthed, including not just the servicing, but the actual execution and build out. But we're very committed to developing the golf course into the full four-season resort now. We've been taking significant steps through this winter, independent of this application, to improve the golf facilities, enhance the offering to the community, take advantage of some of our on-site accommodations that were formerly Mr. McGee and his development manager's homes, and really up the profile of this great regional asset. And this is an important step in being able to fulfill the new clubhouse and a lot of the additional infrastructure that are, if we could go today, we would go today on a lot of that, because we see the value that the course has in the community and the draw that's increasingly growing from the surrounding cities. And as we talked about early on, Mr. Mayor, I mean, Belleville is historically right now known as a place north of Prince Edward County, and we really want to change that. We want to put Belleville on the map for the great place that it is, and I think this is an exceptional opportunity for the city, and we're really excited to be able to bring it forward, and we're grateful for your leadership. So.
Great, thank you. And thank you for your investment of time and resources already and money to get to this point. We appreciate it. My colleagues, resolution that the deputation by Alex Sharp, representing Black Bear Ridge GP Inc., and Mike Pettigrew of the Big Larry Group, presenting development plan of Black Bear Ridge to be received and referred to reports, items 8A1, moved by Councillor Sanderson, seconded by Councillor Carr. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Now, we have a few others that I'd like to call to the podium, and I want to start off with the Federal Member of Parliament, Shelby Cramp-Nyman. I would like to ask you to come forward, please. I know that we had an event last summer when we dedicated the new Thurlow Dog Park, and we congratulated you there, but this is our first time in a more formal spot. It's not new for you any longer, but congratulations on your election as our Member of Parliament. And on today being International Women's Day, to recognize that you are the first female elected to represent that constituency in the history of our country. So congratulations and welcome.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. It's wonderful being here. Thank you for the kind introduction. I can certainly start off by just suggesting that I am the Member of Parliament for Hastings, Lennox, and Addington. So this particular development planning idea is smack in the middle of Hastings, Lennox, and Addington, and it would certainly be most welcome. I'm also part of Her Royal Majesty's Official Opposition Shadow Cabinet, so I'm here in that capacity as well. I'd like to start by saying conceptually, I believe that the master plan looks very impressive. I recognize that it is at the very preliminary stages, so there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. But we can certainly all recognize after hearing that wonderful, thorough presentation that the economic impact to this area is significant. The revenues for the city, the job creation, there's so many benefits that could come from this. I can certainly suggest that Brian McGee would be very proud. The vision that he had, I think this is just exemplifies that. So I think it's a real win for the community, and certainly continues on with his legacy. The next steps, I would certainly suggest that the comments that Councillor Carr made and Councillor Sanderson, along with many others of you around the table, with regards to the importance of stakeholder consultation, public consultation, very important. But there's been so much work done behind the scenes, so much logistical work that still needs to be done. This is just the beginning. And from a federal capacity, I certainly can't, I don't have a magic wand to say, okay, let's move on with this. And from a zoning or whatever perspective, that's not the case either. But I could certainly lend my endorsement that with regards to extending the services to Harmony Road, I would certainly support. And I think it's a real win. So on behalf of the federal government of Canada and myself, who's a golfer, happy enthusiast. I think it's a fantastic win, and I think the entire region would be a real economic success.
Right. Thank you very much for your presentation. Anyone have any questions? So I'll call for a resolution to accept the deputation by Member of Parliament Cramp-Nyman, moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Sanderson. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm now going to call on David Joyce, representing Bay of Quinte Member of Parliament and Provincial Cabinet Minister Todd Smith. Welcome, Mr. Joyce.
I have to move this. Story of my life. I have a few prepared comments, so bear with me, but I promise not to be too long. But I think the project deserves some comments, and I've also taken the opportunity to summarize kind of how we understand the project, some of the functions of the plan, and prepare a document that could be distributed to other members, whether it be within the provincial parliament or locally here. So So good afternoon, Your Worship, members of council, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. As already mentioned, my name is David Joyce, and I'm the Director of Riding Affairs for Bay of Quinte MPP Todd Smith. MPP Smith is currently back at the legislature as the full House continues to sit for this final session of this term. Hopefully not the final session, but the final session of this term, as already mentioned. I'm here to share our thoughts about this major capital investment at Black Bear Ridge, located near Harmony Road and Highway 37. This huge investment will create a residential and resort recreational community. The proposed development is an expansion to the existing world-class golf course, creating a Four Seasons resort with additional recreational, commercial, and residential uses. It will bring diverse jobs to the area, along with various housing opportunities, including affordable, local workforce, and seniors housing. For the city, there will be additional recurring property tax revenues and other servicing revenues, and will allow many other enterprises near Harmony Road to enjoy the benefits of the additional servicing capabilities when completed. The purpose of this special committee meeting is to deal with the fact that this site is outside the current settlement area boundary and requires an agreement to extend services to the property in order to allow for the development that has been proposed. The request for an MZO, Minister's Zoning Order, will facilitate the proposed development through approval of the proposed uses and relevant zoning provisions, while the amendment to the pending official plan, it helps to delineate the area and establish policies for this land to be known as Black Bear Ridge Village Resort. MPP Smith does fully support the project initiative and does hope that the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing will approve this development project through the MZO and official plan amendment. From our review of the documents submitted and what we heard today, the proposed development will protect some of the very important provincial interests, including, but not limited to, promotion of sustainable tourism, economic prosperity, provision of a range and mix of housing types, many as I mentioned earlier. In addition, it appears that all efforts have been made to protect and promote the existing natural environment. These are all important provincial initiatives that appear to have been preserved and enhanced with this project. So on behalf of the province of Ontario and MPP Smith, I want to thank you for this opportunity to hear about this very exciting development and to share our thoughts in this regard. Thank you, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joyce. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Joyce or comments? Okay, seeing none, I need a resolution to that the deputation by David Joyce, representing Todd Smith, MPP, be received and referred to reports item 8A1. Moved by Councillor Alsop, seconded by Councillor Thompson. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you, Mr. Joyce. I'd like to ask now Stan Bigford to come forward, please. Mr. Bigford is representing some adjacent property owners along the area that the services will be extended through. I wonder if you can introduce yourself and state what you wish.
Thank you, Your Worship and councillors. My name is Stan Bigford. I'm the CFO of the TCS Group of Companies from Trenton. And thank you, Michael. I'm sure your GTA reference was the Greater Trenton area. We are Alex's neighbors. I've met him, played at his golf course a few times. It is a very bold, actually quite brilliant plan, I think. We are neighbors to the south. We are owners of the former Corby Distillery property, have been for over 20 years, and we have been hoping that something like this would come forward and make it feasible for all of the landholders and the participants, both in the community and from outside, to make, as Michael said and Alex said, north of the 401 a destination, not just a place north of the 401. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Bigford? No? Thank you. So I'm looking for a resolution that the deputation by Mr. Bigford be received and referred to report items 8A1. Moved by Councillor Feeney, seconded by Councillor Carr. All in favor? It's carried. And then for the last in person, I'd like to call Mr. Doug Stevenson from the Bay of Quinte Regional Marketing Board forward, please. Good afternoon, Mr. Stevenson.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you, Mayor Panchuk and Council, for giving me an opportunity to speak tonight. On behalf of the Bay of Quinte Regional Marketing Board, and for those folks at home, I'm the Executive Director, Doug Stevenson, and we'll be speaking in favor of the proposal. You know, I had a chance to chat with Alex and Kale a couple of different times since they've been up and running, and they've been telling me a bit about the vision. But then I see it in this proposal, and I get fired up because I see what's going to happen. Of course, I can only speak to our mandates, tourism, resident attraction, but this proposal's got lots with respect to both of those. Starting with the resident attraction, you know, Councillor Alsop, Councillor McCaw alluded to this. Affordability. We need more of that in our community. So I get excited when I see the diversity of the units that they're proposing in here. Many of them multi-residential, medium density. And we need that variety so that more of our community members can buy in this city, because it is getting more affordable, or getting pricier. Councillor Millette noted that we're getting old, myself included. So the fact that they're even mentioning retirement in here, I think, is a big part of this proposal. We need more places where people can age in place, and it sounds like this can be one of those spots. And the other piece is also just more places to live. We all saw the census data. We're successful. The last 5 years, Belleville grew by over 8%. More than 4,000 people making this place home since 2016, and that's going to continue on that curve. And so the fact that they're proposing to potentially have over 3,000 dwellings in this proposal, I think, brings a lot to this community. And as was alluded to in the presentation, also to the tax base and what we can do to develop the city of Belleville further using that tax money. Now, from a tourism point of view, I love the title on slide 12, International Golfers Haven. And we are a very successful tourism community. We don't have a whole lot of international tourism draws, though. We've got a lot of great draws, not many of them international. Now, Black Bear Ridge and the work that Brian and the folks up there did over the last little while cemented their reputation, not just in the province, but in the country as a top golf destination. These guys are proposing to put a resort right next to it. Put a spa on the scene, wellness activities, take advantage of the waterfront. I think that is going to make this an international destination. And the key there with the international piece, average time of travel, 7 days. Okay, so these folks aren't just necessarily coming to that property. They're going to be exploring the city, they're going to be exploring the region. And the economic spending there is going to be great. But let's not forget our domestic travelers, right? The folks from the GTA, from Ottawa, from Quebec, who visit us every year. There's lots for them too. I get really excited when I see they want to use the waterfront, even though it's just the Moira River. They want to develop it out into a 12-month-a-year destination to provide winter activities. This is terrific. We need more winter in our tourism portfolio. These guys are proposing to bring it, and I love it. Just before I let you go, let's not forget the plans that the folks over at the Belleville Agricultural Society have in place. They want to bring a conference center into that new property, right? What a package deal we can start to put together when we look at assets like what they're proposing with a conference center and how that could purport to bring more corporate activity here. So just want to say thanks again for the opportunity to speak. I think you can hear the excitement in my voice. Want to say thanks to these guys for the vision that they brought in. I echo the sentiment of the gentleman who spoke before me. I think this is the type of vision we need, and I'm really excited about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stevenson. Anybody have any questions for him? No? Thank you.
Thanks.
Resolution that the deputation by Doug Stevenson, representing the Bay of Quinte Regional Marketing Board, be received and referred to reports item 8A1. Moved by Councillor Feeney, second by Councillor Alsop. All in favor? It's carried. Mr. McDonald, I have 3 pieces of correspondence I want to add to the record so that they are there. Should I do it as one motion, or do you want 3 different? So he's telling me one motion. So colleagues, on the desk there were 4 letters. We weren't sure Ms. Cramp-Nyman would be able to attend today, And so she made her presentation in person. But first, we have a letter from Hastings, Lennox, and Addington Member of Provincial Parliament, Daryl Cramp, dated today, and he says, please accept this letter of support as a very strong endorsement for the proposed expansion of the extension of services to the Harmony Road area in the city of Belleville. Black Bear Ridge GP's Inc.'s proposal to develop a fully serviced resort on their property at 501/503 Harmony Road would provide a benefit to the entire community and the city of Belleville. The added revenue that would be generated from this expansion would provide a boost to the entire region. I am confident that they have provided the necessary information for your consideration. Without reservation, I support this proposal and would be happy to provide any assistance necessary moving forward. Sincerely, Daryl Cramp, MPP. The second letter is from the Hastings and Prince Edward District School Board, and it is under the signature of Catherine McIver, the Director of Education. And basically, she, in this letter, she thanks us. She explains they operate the Harmony Public School at 626 Harmony Road, and that as a rural site, Harmony Public School is served by 2 local wells located on the school site and a septic system also located on site. There are 3 large buried water reservoirs for firefighting purposes. Harmony Public School has grown continuously since it opened, and the long-term projections show that growth continuing. Hastings and Prince Edward District School Board supports residential development in the region, and specifically the proposed Black Bear Ridge site. Such development would allow for municipal services, water and sewer, to be extended along Harmony Road with anticipated connection to Harmony Public School. These services would allow the Hastings and Prince Edward District School Board to better serve students and offer future expansion opportunities. And that is the correspondence from Ms. McIver. And then the last piece of correspondence is from Quinte Conservation. And colleagues, I'll remind you that I believe it was in 2021, we passed a resolution stating that we would consult with Quinte Conservation if we were considering a minister zoning order, an MZO. And the letter dated March the 4th deals with the Black Bear development. I'm just going to paraphrase or read out an excerpt of it. They have received the information, and I am pleased to hear that the proposed development will be serviced with water and sanitary services. Having this area on municipal services will alleviate environmental concerns regarding private wells and private septic systems, which were part of a previously preliminary plan for the property. The proposed route outlined in the servicing plan does not appear to have any concerns regarding Quinte Conservation's natural hazards responsibilities as it follows existing trail road corridors. And then Mr. McNevin, who is the CEO of Quinte Conservation, summarizes by saying, Quinte Conservation does not have any objection to the information and details provided for the MZO application request being presented at the special meeting of council on March the 8th. We will continue to work closely with the City of Belleville staff and the property development team as this project unfolds. Our goal is to ensure that all proposed development is located in the appropriate areas and that natural hazards continue to be recognized and protected. And then Mr. McNevin did have a list of items that they wish to have consultation with the city and the proposed developers. So those 3 letters will now be part of the record. I just need a resolution to receive them as correspondence. Moved by Councillor McCaw, seconded by Councillor Millette. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. So we will now move to a committee of the whole. I need a motion to go in a committee of the whole to hear and consider reports, passing of recommendations and resolutions with myself in the chair. Moved by Councillor Alsap, seconded by Councillor Feeney. All in favor? Carried. Reports. 8A1. Consideration for council support of a ministerial zoning order, Black Bear Ridge, fully serviced resort area, Belleville. It is the Director of Engineering and Development Services, report number DEDS 2022-02. And the resolution is that pursuant to the Director of Engineering and Development Services report number DEDS 2022-02, Council supports the application of a minister's zoning order as requested by Black Bear Ridge GP Inc. and reviewed by the City Solicitor Templeman LLP for a fully serviced resort area on the lands located near Harmony Road and Highway 37 as provided in attachment number 2 of this report, and that the new official plan policies as provided in attachment number 10 of this report, which are associated with the fully serviced resort area to ensure official plan conformity with the Minister's zoning order be forwarded to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing for incorporation into the new City of Belleville official plan as part of the ministerial approval of the official plan, and that a bylaw to approve and authorize the execution of a cost recovery agreement between the Corporation of the City of Belleville and Black Bear Ridge GP Inc. be prepared for Council's consideration. Moved by Councillor Sandison, seconded by Councillor Carr. Director Ashton, before I ask you to say a few things, can I just express my gratitude to you for the incredible amount of work that you have been doing on this over the last number of weeks. On February the 28th, the Biglieri Group provided this large package of information as part of their documents to support this request to Belleville City Council. And Director Ashton has been working to put together his report and work with legal counsel and city staff, as well as everyone else. And this is an excellent, well-written, well-researched report that is very thorough and covers off everything. So first of all, I want to say thank you. I know that this was a lot of time, a lot of after-hours work that was done, and you should feel very proud of putting it together so well in such short time. Do you have any comments you'd like to make in addition to the report that Council did receive already?
Well, first of all, we did have a lot of staff supporting this report as well. It just wasn't myself, and as well as our consultants and our legal staff as well. I think a lot of things that have already been discussed were in my comments, so I'm not going to sort of repeat them. The development group, including Black Bear Ridge, as well as their consultants, sort of we're receptive to the city's position of how this property should develop to reflect good planning principles. I think those are reflected through the documents that you see here, not only the MZO, but the proposed official plan policies and whatnot. I think basically, if there is one thing to reiterate, this is just the initial step of the process. There's lots of work to be done. But I think with the MZO in conjunction with the official plan policies, staff is very satisfied that there is a route to see development occur. And just in summary, city staff is satisfied that we have put enhanced policy documents in front of council if they wish to support the MZO, which are reflected, those recommendations, in the staff report before you tonight.
Thank you. And I don't have any questions for you, Director Ashton, but I do for the CAO. And I wonder, just because of your length of service with the city, if you can recall and I mean that as a compliment. If you can recall a similar investment that was contemplated or has occurred in the history of the city of Belleville.
Well, Your Worship, my memory isn't what it used to be. But no, I don't think so. This is a significant investment for the city, and I look forward to the process of getting it moving along. As the presentations indicated, this is a long-term project, and many of us in the room now won't be around when it's finalized, so at least not working anyways. So definitely looking forward to it and very excited for the future of the project and its impact on the city. Thank you.
I'll just make some comments, and then I'll open it up for questions and comments from everyone else. But I think that certainly today is a historic day for the city of Belleville, and I think everybody recognizes this. We are considering a record-breaking project in terms of total investment, and it's a clear demonstration of confidence in our ambitious future. Black Bear Ridge was just a dream for many years, and today we're taking the steps to make it a reality, finally. This project is about investment, it's about development, it's about jobs, additional housing, and improved lifestyle offerings. And this is entirely consistent with the work of this council this term to focus on safe, responsible growth and leveraging investments in the quality of life improvements for residents for years to come. This project preserves and allows us to safely interact with nature. It excludes almost half of the entire property, or more than half the entire property, by protecting the most sensitive areas from development. Much of the current property is not in use agriculturally, and the land is not suitable for agricultural purposes. And so what we are considering today is an expansion of the existing golf course and associated facilities into a full Four Seasons resort with additional recreational, commercial, residential, and mixed use development. Municipal sanitary and water service protects the environment by maintaining groundwater levels and sparing the area from septic tanks, which are a long-term ecological risk. The Palmer Report, in the Comprehensive Study of Natural Heritage and Environmental Constraints Assessment for the BBR Resort, states that their opinion is that, quote, from the initial background review and field reconnaissance on February 10th, 2022, that development of these areas will produce little to no negative impacts on the surrounding natural features. The project estimates $1.5 billion in initial one-time spending, with $53.7 million a year in annual business output from future operations. This represents, as I said, a record investment in the history of our community. It will create 12,380 full-time jobs to support the project, followed by 580 full-time jobs to support the operations afterwards. It will leave a legacy of $17.6 million per year in annual taxes, water, and sanitary charges. And it will provide a variety of housing models and will include worker housing for the resort. It is a project that will support year-round activities, including a spa, resort accommodations, event space, and natural activities. And this will promote tourism to the region by providing an international, laid-back luxury destination in the city of Belleville. It provides for a design-driven, inclusive community that is age-friendly and supports the principles of a complete community. From the introduction of the proposal that we have before us of the group, it states, quote, the proposal supports the city's emphasis on tourism as an important part of positioning the city as an economic driver within the region, while reducing dependency on the residential tax base. Further, the proposal represents the expansion of an existing business in order to generate additional local employment opportunities. And lastly, the proposal takes advantage of the area's significant natural attractions, including the Moira River, in order to promote sustainable tourism, including leisure and recreation opportunities. This is an exciting day for the city of Belleville and is the result of a lot of hard work to get here. I will enthusiastically support the resolutions before us today, and I thank everyone who has been involved with advancing this possibility. This type of transformative project is the reason why I sought the mayor's seat in the last election. Belleville can aspire to be a better community, a community that is confident about its future and taking concrete steps to improve the quality of life for all residents. This project will provide significant benefits for Belleville residents for decades to come, and I'm proud to be part of a council that supports this project. Does anyone else have any questions or comments they wish to make? Councillor Carr.
Yes, thank you. And, you know, I certainly share that enthusiasm, and it was 22 years ago, my first round at council. Mr. McGee was in the design phase, very preliminary design phase of the golf course, and we drove around in an old pickup truck as he was telling me how the golf course was going to lay out, as they were continually moving large boulders and just starting to take shape of the land. And he talked about the vision he had long term, and there's been discussions along the way about municipal services and growth in that area. And it's been said already, but I want to just repeat that if it wasn't for his vision and his investment and his commitment to the city to have that anchor world-class golf course, that now these new owners and investors can come in and build off of it, none of us would be here today contemplating this spectacular project. With something of this size, though, as I expressed with some questions to the deputations, there's always angst amongst the existing residents as to what this is going to do to them, how is it going to impact them. good, obviously, from the economic benefits, the job opportunities, the housing prospects for friends and family and relatives that are looking for housing. We hear it all the time from the province. We need more housing. I think the city's now going to be delivering on that front and then some. We have exceptional planning staff. I can say, as chair of the Planning Advisory Committee, the staff go above and beyond. And when the province is talking about benchmarks in terms of getting things moving, I like to think, and based on what we see here before us today and applications previously, they move quickly and they're responsive. And so that's what we want as a city. And so we're achieving those results that the province has also put in terms of expectations on municipalities across Ontario. I do have a couple of questions, though, and so I know this is kind of taken away from the celebratory feel, but again, I need to do my job here. So through you, Mayor Panchuk, to Director Ashton, going through the new official plan policies, attachment 10, and it's very thorough and very outlined in terms of next steps. There's a number of studies that obviously have to be done. And they're outlined, and I was just wondering, and they're not explicitly indicated, it just says there may be other studies, but what about hydroecological studies? And I know for residents that are on well and septic with municipal services, there's not that impact. But when you have development and you're disturbing land, and some folks that may even have a dug well rely on groundwater to do its thing. And so I'm wondering about hydrological studies, as well as, and I didn't see it in the policies, was traffic impact study.
Okay, so with the hydro-G, we would have the applicants look at, especially in terms of protecting the adjacent areas. It would also, they would want to do that to protect their own interests as well, to avoid any sort of disputes in the future, so that would be something that would be covered off. In terms of traffic, I mean, honestly, this will be part of the highway corridor management system of the MTO, so they will definitely be put through a higher order of review than what the city of Belleville would do. So, but I haven't read. If it's not in here, I think I believe there was something about traffic studies, but that would be automatically required as part of the MTO submission as well.
Okay. And I'm just asking these questions just simply because I know this is something that a lot of the residents are certainly tuned into and are going to be following. And so by asking these questions, it's just a matter of the due diligence. So again, hearing the response in terms of the MZO and the fact that we're just consolidating this area, there's still a lot of studies, and I appreciate the large submission that the proponents brought forward, and then listening to, reading the staff input on the official plan policies, all the other background studies that have to occur, the subdivision applications, the site plan approvals. There's a lot of checks and balances with this, and as I reviewed it overnight and today, I'm satisfied to be able to support it. And initially, as I hear from residents, they're concerned, but I think as residents and the public start to see exactly how this is going to unfold, that concerns about preserving the environment and things of that nature are well baked into this project. So I think it's exciting and certainly bodes well for the future of the city. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Anyone else like to speak on it? Councillor Alsop?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I agree that this is an exciting day and certainly very exciting to be contemplating a project of this size. And certainly with the mix of high density, medium density, low density residential, affordable units, it really is a very good holistic project that also manages the need for growth with the appreciation for the environment. And so I think that this is a really exciting time for us. And certainly when I was a kid, which it's been alluded to was not that long ago, this didn't seem like a city where this kind of thing would happen. And so the fact that we're here now discussing something like this really shows how far we've come in just a short period of time. And I know many of you, if we're talking about a 20-year build-out, unfortunately won't be with us by the time this comes to fruition. But in 20 years, I'll be 49. And I can certainly assure all of you that when I'm at the spa and having the drinks arrive and all those sorts of things at this development in 20 years, I'll be thinking about all of you. Thank you.
That's very kind of you, Councillor Alsop. Thank you. Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just want to comment that certainly, great work by our engineering staff, and obviously there's been a strong collaboration with the owners, the developers, our legal team, our provincial team, and I'm very proud to be actually part of this council that's being able to sit here today and look at this development. And I said earlier, and I'll say it again, it's a game changer, and these things don't happen that often, and it is just, it's going to be fantastic. So I'm certainly looking forward to supporting it. Hopefully we get the MZO and the wheels are in motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Millett.
Thank you, Your Worship, and this was a lot to digest, because a lot of these reports came in Feb 28. Some of this came in, and I can't imagine the work that Mr. Ashton and his people had to do. I am, I'm not as giddy as some around the table. I'm cautiously excited, let's say, because I guess I've seen projects, big projects come to town. I'm thinking the racetrack and casino some years back on Bell Boulevard that had us all dancing in the streets, and it didn't come together. I love this idea. I've seen it in places that aren't Belleville, Ontario. I love the enthusiasm of the developers to be as bold, I guess, if you will. Not Doug Stevenson excited, but I am excited.
No one's Doug
I don't think anybody's heart can take it if they're that excited for too long. But I am encouraged by the fact that checks and balances are in place, in all seriousness. This is a huge undertaking. And I congratulate Mr. Sharp and his people for the bold vision of this, but I'm comfortable that the checks and balances are in place. We have some amazing staff who are gatekeepers of proper planning and policy. I'm going to support it, and lest anybody think this is going to be a cakewalk, once this MZO comes through, there's a lot of regulatory hurdles to ahead. So the checks and balances are in place. Hats off to the people. And again, I knew Brian McGee when I used to write about him in the Intel, calling him Smiling Brian. And somewhere right now, Brian is smiling, because this is quite a legacy. So thank you, and I will endorse this project.
Thank you, Councillor Millett. Councillor Feeney and McCaw, do you want to say anything? Councillor Feeney?
Can we please vote?
Yes. Councillor McCaw?
Thank you. Maybe I'll just add something for Councillor Alsop through you. I don't plan on dying anytime soon, and I'll be right there with you when this place opens.
I'll buy the first
And for
round.
most know, I'm too miserable to die anytime soon.
Good. Thank you. Before we call the vote, the most important part of what council is doing today is endorsing this concept moving forward. And that gives the developers some assurance that we are partners with them and that we are going to work. We'll follow all the regulatory requirements and all the proper planning process, but that we have our heart into this and we're behind this project moving forward. When I first met Mr. Sharp and we discussed the potential, it's a significant financial undertaking to to work on a project like this. Not just to get it to this stage, but then the real heavy work starts when you have to start paying for materials. I believe if my math is correct, it's around $18 million just for the sanitary and the water expansion, and that would have to be front-ended on their part. And you know, you need to be able to go to either your partners or the markets or a bank with something that gives them the assurance that this project is possible. This step, a minister's zoning order allowing this to happen, allows them to have that assurance so they can start going. And the reason why I say that is because, you know, we would like to see this project accelerate. You know, we know there's a lot of work to do, but we believe that a proper work plan can be developed, which allows certain things to occur before other things occur later on. And those first things allow them to get in. Certainly the resort part of it, the accommodation for overnight guests, the work there, extending the services is very important. We know that will benefit Harmony Public School, and it'll benefit the city of Belleville when we deal with the Masterson Center and the fire station that's up there and else and other things. We know that there are some property owners that will want to hook up into lands that now are eligible to be developed, but they don't have the sanitary and water capacity. So, you know, certainly I would like to accelerate this. That was the first thing that Mr. Sharp heard me say to him, is that I wanted to see this thing accelerated, and it's hard to believe that here we are today. But this is an important day for us, and we have been working with the minister's office to understand exactly what they require from the city in order to be able to give proper and the most positive consideration to this. We know we're under a certain timeline now as we enter into the pre-writ period, but all of the decisions we make today will put us in a position that we can have in short order the minister's approval, and that would let them go ahead with the project. So thank you. I'm going to call the vote on the resolution that was moved by Councillor Sanderson and Councillor Carr. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. A motion to rise and report, moved by Councillor Alsap, seconded by Councillor Millette. All in favor? It's carried. I'm looking for a motion, a confirmatory bylaw, that bylaw number 2022-22, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its special meeting held on March the 8th, 2022, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed this 8th day of March 2022. Moved by Councillor Sanderson, seconded by Councillor Carr. All in favor? It's carried. Motion to adjourn, Councillor Alsap and Councillor Feeney. All in favor? It's carried. Congratulations.